Hello there and welcome to a slightly longer than usual episode of a weekly Waypoint, because I hate my free time and I want to sit in rendering hell. Now there's a few reasons. The first and foremost though is that you don't get... Okay, so this is Quake Live, and I've never done a bot match in Quake Live. This is my very first bot match I've ever recorded in Quake Live. I've done a few online matches, but I decided I would give bot matches a go because, you know me, I love my bot matches. But you don't get many options for setting it up. Quake Champions is actually the better bot match creator for a Quake game, but obviously we have issues recording in that one, which is why I thought I'd try this one this week. But you don't get to choose like the score limit or the time limit, so I couldn't set this to like a 10-minute match. So it's my first ever match followed by my second ever match, and they're both about 8 minutes long. But also I just thought, you know, I think it would be nice to just have a bit of a longer episode because I have a lot to talk about this week. Before I get into the inevitable Final Fantasy ramble though, and don't worry, I'm not just going to be talking about 14 this week. Before we get to that, I would first like to talk about Quake Live, because obviously I just played 2 matches of it. I haven't played it in years, and I haven't played a lot of what I have played of it. Again, I've only played a few matches online, and I seem to recall that I tried to do a weekly deathmatch in this back when this series was called the Weekly Deathmatch. But for some reason it didn't pan out right. Like, maybe online players were just way too good, or maybe I got kicked for being like new to the game, which is apparently a thing that happens according to the reviews. I don't remember why I decided to not do it, but hey, I remembered that bots are a thing. My first impression is that this game is way more fast-paced than Quake Champions, and that's probably what Quake Champions haters are talking about when they say that they don't like the style of gameplay that Quake Champions has. This is like this is based on Quake 3, I believe. So this is like traditional Quake gameplay that people like, and it's really fun. My only issue is the bots in the first game are the middle difficulty, and the bots in the second game are the second from the hardest difficulty, and I dominated them in both. So while I've yet to play against bots of the hardest difficulty, I am concerned that they're slightly too easy. Oh no, I may have to go online and play against real people after all, where they will dominate me. But yeah, expect more of these in upcoming weekly Waypoints. Maybe there is a way to change some more settings that I just haven't found yet. I'm going to experiment with this some more. I've literally just jumped in this for half an hour and come out like my mouse sensitivity isn't like what I want it to be, and the volume was a little too high. I had to lower that down in editing, so if the audio levels sound a little bit out of whack, that would be why. But this game has so many maps, and I really like the idea of just visiting them in alphabetical order throughout lots of weekly Waypoints. That's how I do it in Unreal Tournament, and that's how I was going to do it in Quake Champions when I realised I couldn't record that still. So yeah, more of these in the future, providing it renders well, because I did just see like a frame rate hitch like for a minute or two there, so sorry if that came through in the render. Can you imagine if I can't record this one either? That would be fucking hysterical. Anyway, Final Fantasy XIV, but before Final Fantasy XIV, for anyone who doesn't care about it, don't worry, there's more of this video yet for you, and of course you can always navigate topics based on the timestamps below. But what I will say is Final Fantasy XIV, I finished Reborn, more on that later, but I like Final Fantasy XIV's world now. Like, I used to have issues with it because Final Fantasy often combines fantasy aesthetics with like sci-fi technology aesthetics, and I traditionally haven't been a fan of when fiction tries to do that. But ever since I finished Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn campaign, I'm like, oh, I actually have reason to like this stuff now, because I've liked a game which features it, and I'm a lot less picky about it. So one of the main reasons I never tried Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy VIII was because I could never reconcile the idea of living in this like fantasy style world, but it's like it's not even like super out there sci-fi technology. The problem is that it looks more like terrestrial technology. Like Final Fantasy VII looks like it's set in like this big industrial city and all of this. And I'm talking about the original here, not just the remake. And while Cloud obviously has his Buster Sword, Barrett is that his name? He has like this machine gun for an arm, and I've just been picky about combining that kind of a genre, but now I'm all about it. Now I love it. Now I'm fond of it, and because of that, I want to go back and play older Final Fantasies. Now don't get me wrong, I am at least a little bit self-aware, and I know that I tend to make lots of lists which I never end up finishing. Like I was going to try and get every achievement in Elder Scrolls Online on Xbox, although that's still up in the air. Or like I was going to play through every single Assassin's Creed and write about them all on my blog. Stuff like that, which obviously I throw out there and everyone's like, he's not going to finish that, and I don't, but it's fun to try, damn it. So in that same kind of a spirit, I have decided that after I finish all of the Final Fantasy XIV current story up to Shadowbringers, and probably Endwalkers by the time I'm done with that, so we're already setting lofty ambitions. After all that, or maybe at some point in the middle, because I am of a changeable mind, I've decided that I want to play through as many Final Fantasies as I possibly can. And a lot of them are on Game Pass. 3 I own, but 7, 8, 9, and I believe 12 are on Game Pass, and I think they're about to add 10, and I don't know if they're adding 10 and 10.2 at the same time. Let me go check. Yes, it looks like 10 and 10.2 come in like a remastered pack together, but I looked it up and they're adding more, so yeah, my full list is I want to experience Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10, 10.2, 12, 13, 13.2, Lightning Returns, which is another 13 spin-off, and 15. So I'm obviously never going to do all that, but I'm going to make video content out of what I do. I said do. I'm probably going to leave Final Fantasy III until later, just because I own that one and it's not, you know, in fear of being removed from a service. I don't think they're going to be removing any Final Fantasies anytime soon, but you can never be too careful. So we're going to start from the original 7 and go from there, and there's going to be videos about it, but probably not for a while. But then maybe I'll just like be like, actually no, I'll do that soon. But yeah, they literally just announced that they're adding 10 and 10.2 to the service in the upcoming weeks. Also, they just announced a whole extra bunch of titles which are getting FPS boosts, so excuse me for a moment while I go and read through which ones. Okay, a lot of them, but nothing that necessarily jumps out to me as something that I'm interested in revisiting. Although, while we're talking about Xbox, I will say that Dragon Quest Builders 2 comes to Game Pass tomorrow, and that's probably going to be the first time I take a break from Final Fantasy XIV in like 2 weeks to play a different game. Maybe not necessarily a break as much as just like I'll spend half of my free time that day playing it instead of all of my free time that day playing it. But yeah, I bought Dragon Quest Builders 1 for the Switch, and while I never finished that game, I did really enjoy what I played of it, so I'm absolutely ecstatic that they're bringing Dragon Quest Builders 2 to the Xbox and I don't have to pay any additional fees to play it. I'm going to try and not say I don't have to pay to play it, because I do. I pay for it every month, and I'm part of a problem, but I hate it when people pretend that it's free when it's not. It's just extremely good value. Okay, the time has come to talk about Final Fantasy XIV, which I know I already talked about last week and the week before that, but this week I finished the Realm Reborn story, and as of about an hour ago, I also finished the almost equally as long patch content between A Realm Reborn and Heavensward, which is called the 7th Astral Era arc on the wiki. Obviously, if you follow my channel, you will know that I have been fucking steamrolling through that game because I've been pumping out like 3 to 4 videos a week on it. I started yesterday, which was my only day off of the week, by putting out a video on it, and I ended the day by editing together an entirely new 13-minute video on it. If you're wondering just how little of a life I have right now, no regrets. I'm not going to be talking about spoilers, so anyone who hasn't played it doesn't have to worry about that, but in general terms, I will say, fucking hell. I mean, I literally want to play an entire franchise of games that I've never had any interest in before because of this game, so, you know, that's probably a good sign. The very reason I decided to pick up Final Fantasy XIV again after trying it for about 25 hours in 2019, was that I actually heard a spoiler, and I'm not going to repeat it, don't worry, but I heard a spoiler, and without that spoiler, as anti-spoiler as I am, I probably wouldn't have come back, or at least not for the foreseeable future. But I heard something which basically sold me on the nature of the storytelling in that game, which was this big event which occurs at the end of the patch content before Heavensward, which is a massive turn in the story. It's the kind of thing that I don't think I've seen an MMO attempt to do before in terms of just where it takes the characters of its game, including you. Throughout my time playing Final Fantasy XIV, I very much noticed, even as someone who hasn't played previous games in the series, that it seems to hold fast to its roots, and that a lot of its origins as coming from a turn-based RPG series are still alive and well in there. Mostly little things like the fact that when you have multiple enemies on screen, each one has a letter next to their name, like H or J or something, to help you differentiate which one is which is actually a very much welcome feature. I assume in difficult raids, when people are having to do everything they can together, they're talking about, oh, focus the one for J at the end of its name instead of, oh, focus the one on the right, or having to put an icon above it, you know? Just little things like that. But I suppose on a larger scale, what Final Fantasy does 14 does well by its predecessors is it continues the level of storytelling which I assume can be found in the previous games. Like, for instance, you'll notice that in World of Warcraft, while there's a lot of cool storytelling going on, there's nothing much that permanently affects the world happening. There have been in the last few expansions, I suppose, but that's more on a physical level. I'm talking more on like an allegiance level, more on a character level, more on, you know, a gaming level. Sorry, I just caught how my voice sounded. Basically what I'm trying to say here is that Final Fantasy XIV doesn't feel like it's restricted in its storytelling by the nature of itself as an MMO, which other MMOs most definitely do, no matter how well they get around it. Other things I love about Final Fantasy XIV so far include the job system. I absolutely love that you can do every single class on a single character, and while I do want to make themed characters later down the line, like a more buff character who does all the tanking stuff, and a more like kind of intelligent looking character who does all the magician stuff like that, I am going to make Tamara Seraphon my kind of like master of all. Like, he has, like, I guess as a warrior of light, I guess he has this innate talent to pick up loads of different fighting disciplines. Who fucking knows? You can explain it away however you like, but I just like the idea of being a completionist. Speaking of lists which I will never complete, of being a completionist and having that jobs page just full of like level 90 jobs by the time Endwalkers comes out. Because of course I'll get it done by the time Endwalkers comes out, right? Or by the time it's finished and the next expansion comes out. That sounds like a reasonable thing. Please pay no attention to the fact that I have never at any point in my life had every single class in World of Warcraft to max level, although I did get close towards the end of Warlords of Draenor. Deep breath. Yet I will say that a criticism I have with Final Fantasy XIV is that I don't think leveling alts is as fun as it is in another MMO like World of Warcraft. Because it feels like you level your main class and it's really engaging because you're doing the main story, and then you go off to do the class quests in between doing the main story. But when the main story isn't there to be doing, dungeons don't give that much XP after you do your one daily dungeon a day. And then like there's not a huge variety of dungeons either, and you can't like just accept quests because it's a separate character, you know. So again, you don't get a huge amount of XP per dungeon, which means you have to do lever quests, which are just like these super grindy, like super basic fetch quests that you can sign up for and run out and do. And there's other avenues as well of XP gain, but they're all similarly grindy and less engaging. So it is kind of a shame. And sure, every 5 levels you get a new class quest, and that's always fun. And hopefully that will kind of like stay the grind a little bit, because you'll be like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next in the story of, I don't know, a paladin or whatever I'm leveling. And it's exciting to get new armor sets and things like that and fill out that job page. But I do worry that it's going to become a bit too much of a grind to handle, and maybe that's the reason why people actually do make different character alts, for that very reason. But anyway, I've reached Heavensward now, and I'm very excited to see where the story goes next, because everyone tells me that you kind of have to get through A Realm Reborn and the subsequent 7th Astral Era storyline. But besides the overdone longevity of the patch content, I've really enjoyed what I've already played of like A Realm Reborn and stuff, so to hear that it only gets better from here is super exciting to me. That being said, I have just started Heavensward, and I did the first few quests where I walked around the city, and so far no real story hooks have occurred, and I'm going, right, that's it, I'm logging off for the moment to make a weekly waypoint to edit together some of these Final Fantasy XIV videos in my backlog, because I've got Volume 9 edited together, it just needs to be rendered, and I've definitely got enough content for Volume 10. Look out for Volume 10, that's going to be the one where shit goes down, as they say. As you know, people are wont to say. But while I have no story hooks in me, like making me like really excited to keep going forwards and seeing what happens, I'm gonna log off. I'm gonna make some time to play Dragon Quest Builders 2 when it unlocks on Game Pass tomorrow. And yeah, one final thing that isn't Final Fantasy related, because you made it through my ramble. I bought Lego Star Wars the complete Saga again because it was £3, and this is the only version of the game that has achievements, and I was very excited to read through the achievements and see what I needed to do to 100% one of my favourite games ever made. And to my dismay, there is one achievement to complete a level online through Xbox Live, which obviously isn't working anymore. And I'm just like, why? Why would you put that in there? Anyway, thank you very much for watching. The frame rate glitch was just happening again, so I hope that doesn't show up post-render. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.